Singleton design pattern is used when you want to have only one instance of a certain class in your code. Okay, so this is the one criteria or the need for it. But this design pattern is actually overused, or you can say abused by developers, and it can make your code complex. So the reason why I made this video is I wanted to explain you where you should use this design pattern appropriately, and most importantly where you should not use it. So there are two main criteria as to when you should use singleton pattern in your code. The first one is obvious. You need exactly one instance of the class that you want to make singleton. The second one is less obvious and people sometimes not understand it or ignore it, is that that class should be accessed from more than one place in your code in a multi-threaded environment. Else most of the time you can do it without making it a singleton. There are some valid use cases of a singleton design pattern. Loggers are an appropriate use case because you need to use a logger in almost every class of your code. So dependency injection will not be very clean. Database connection, you want to have a single database connection. Thread pool, you want to manage your thread with a single thread pool. You do not want to have multiple thread pools. But again, in these cases also, sometimes depending on use case to use case, you can do it without making the class singleton. Again, there are factory classes. Uh, for example, in a game of chess, there is a chess piece factory to create different pieces. If it's a computer game, like a car race game, then you can have a car factory to create different cars. You can have soldier factory to create different soldiers if it's a computer war game. But the reason why we should not put singleton code everywhere, because it is very easy to use singleton everywhere. You see a code and only one instance of the class is getting used, you are tempted to make it singleton. But that's not a good idea, because once you make a class singleton, then once it is loaded in the memory, then it is going to sit there. It has consumed a chunk of memory or blocked a chunk of memory, and it is not going away. So it is not good for memory management. It is hard to unit test because once it is instantiated, you cannot re-instantiate it with a different state. So it is hard to unit test. So most of the times you are much better off using factories for creating different complex objects or passing the object in the constructor of the user class. So you want to make a class singleton, better pass it as a object in the constructor of the class which intends to use it. So that is another way of doing it. So let's see its implementation and let's see a different, you can say counter examples in real world interview examples. Let's go ahead. So how will we make a class singleton? What will you do is, will first it make its constructor private. So it cannot be accessed from anywhere. Then what we do is, we have a static variable of its own. So this instance variable is of the type singleton and it is static, and we have a static method get instance, and we use this method to get the only instance for this class. Now again, this class is doing two things. The first one, it will have the methods that is required by other classes that will actually be used by other classes. The second thing what this class is doing is, it is polishing the instance, that it is making sure that only one instance of this class gets created. So again, this also violates the single responsibility principle. So this is sort of another disadvantage of making a class singleton. But for now, let's see the implementation. In the get instance method, you first of all check whether the instance is null. If it is not null, then this block will be skipped and directly the instance will be returned. So we have only one instance. Now, what if it is null? Then we come to the synchronized block. So we are assuming that we are in a multi-threaded environment. When we come to the synchronized block, we lock on singleton.class, that is the static form of it, and check again. This is the double check that the singleton that the instance is null. If it is not null, if it is null, then a new singleton object is created and assigned to the instance reference variable. So why this double check? Let's suppose two threads entered inside this if block. The first one created a singleton object and now it is referring to the singleton object through this instance reference variable. If the second thread entered after it and this instance equal to null check was not there, then what would happen is this instance variable will get overwritten by a new object. So now this instance will point out to different object, and the previous thread would actually still be pointing to the older singleton object. So now we have two, or you can say if there are multiple threads, then multiple singleton objects created in our system, which we do not want. We want to prevent that. So the double check is required. This is how you make a class singleton. How will you use it? It's simple. Singleton.getInstance. This is a static method, so we do not need to instantiate the class. Simply call getInstance, and that's how you use it. Now this is just one of the ways of making a class singleton. You can do it simply in a much simpler way. It says if it's a single threaded environment, you can do it at a startup, but again you do not want to load too many classes at the program startup. So this is one of the ways that I decided to show it to you. You can try out other ways, see it from the internet. Now let's see a few examples from real interview questions, or you can say counter examples. So we'll start with design chess game. I have already opened the question. So in a chess game, there are multiple different kinds of pieces. So we need a chess piece factory to create different pieces. Now in a chess game, we need to have only one chess piece factory. We do not need multiple chess piece factories. And that chess piece factory will create all the pieces. Like in the create piece method, it is creating different pieces. We do not need to know the logic of create piece. What is important here is we can make chess piece factory singleton. We'll come back to the question, should we make it? But see here how we have made it a singleton. So we have made the chess piece factory constructor private. Also have a static instance variable here, and we have the get instance method with double lock first one, and then a double check one is here, check two is here. So this is how chess piece factory is made a singleton. And how we have used it? We have used it from the chessboard class. We have used here chessboard factory.get instance, and then in the chessboard method, for each row and column, what we have done is for each row and column, if there is a piece, we have created the piece object from the factory using the color and type parameter. So this is how we have created a factory, made it a singleton, and we have used it. But was it necessary? We are not using factory from anywhere else in our code. We are using it only from the chessboard. So it was not necessary. We could have simply created a normal chess piece factory object here. We did not needed to make it a singleton. Let's see a different example. In a design of a text editor, what does a text editor have? It has characters, and it has each character can have its own style. So basically we have characters with style. I have named it char flyweight. We do not need to see the logic of it, just that it is different characters with different styles. For example, a C with red color and bold, or a C with italic, or a B with underlined. So there are different styles. So what we can use here is we have a char flyweight factory to create different such characters with different such styles. But here we haven't made this factory a singleton. You can see the singleton code is not here. What we intend to do is we intend to use only a single instance of this char flyweight factory to use the create style method. So how we have used it, let's see. We have used it from the solution class, which is sort of the starting class of our program. In all the classes in CodeGym, the starting class is solution. So we have simply instantiated the factory and made it an instance variable, and then in the add character method, for all the characters, we have just used the factory to create style, or called the create style method of factory. So we saw that since we are using this factory from a single place in our code, we can do it without making it a singleton. And that is what you should learn from here. How to avoid using singleton pattern if it is not required. So if you want to remember anything about using singleton, then remember these two things. The first one is obvious, that you use singleton only when exactly one instance of the class is required. The second one is that class should be accessed from more than one place in your code in a multi-threaded environment. Else There are better ways to do it. You do not need to make it a singleton. Avoid making it a singleton. This was all about singleton pattern. Now I have created a 7-day plan to prepare for low-level design interviews. You can access it on codegym.com/roadmap. It has short videos and practice questions for each day. Each day you will watch the short video first and do the practice question. So it makes it smooth for you to practice for your LLD interviews. What happens is when the LLD interview is scheduled, people generally have less time. So generally the interview is scheduled this week or it is scheduled next week. So people are confused because uh, time is less and there are ton of content on the internet. So they do not know from where to start preparing, which theory to do first, which YouTube videos to see first, and which questions to practice. So this has everything. I have already created short YouTube videos, less than 15 minutes. And again, I also have added questions from CodeGym. You can see, you can run tests on CodeGym to see that your code executes properly and correctly, passes all the test cases, and give it a try. It will help you prepare for your LLD interviews pretty efficiently. Thanks for watching this video. I wish you the best of your luck for your interview preparation. Bye.